Hi, BookTube. So it's been a while since I have filmed a video, so I thought now would be a good time to sit down and chat with you on what I've been up to this month. When I last spoke with you, I was working on creating my February TBRs because I was a co-host for the Little House Readathon, where it's focused on all books Laura Ingalls Wilder related, and then I am participating in the Retro Romance Readathon, focusing on romance books previous to 2004, which I guess 2004 and earlier is considered retro now, and along with doing some booktuber favorites where I was going through different booktubers favorites of 2023 and picking out one book from each of their videos to read from. So I have been dabbling in all of that, and then I started reading a little bit, and then I went on a work trip. I think I mentioned this on BookTube, but for my work I had to fly across country to Washington, D.C., and I'm in Portland, Oregon, so I had a time change and lots of travel, work, events, and meetings, and lunches, and dinners, and it was a lot. It was a full week. It was Monday and Friday of this past week. Monday and Friday was all travel, and it was like the entire day, and then Tuesday through Thursday, I was absolutely booked up from around 7 in the morning till 7 at night. So one of the nights it was like 9:30 until I got back to the hotel. So it was my reading time really for that week was just flying there and back. I tried to read here and there because we did have a couple of like 30-minute increments, not even like sprinkled out through the day, like one time, a little bit each day. I mean, it was good to see everyone because I work remote, and so I see everyone on like the little pictures on your Teams meetings, for example, or I email them. So it was nice to see everyone in person, but it was a lot to do to get there and come back, basically. So I was very overwhelmed because I am very much an introverted person where I do like being in groups like every now and then, but to have it so much for such a long period of time with no true breaks to get away from it was a lot for me to handle. So I'm glad I won't be doing that for at least, I'm hoping, maybe a year from now. We'll see how this pans out, because I don't want to be doing too much travel with work, because that's just too much for me to deal with. Because I'm not more of an anxious. I feel like I'm more of an anxious traveler. I think COVID and all that hasn't really helped. I don't know, but maybe with practice. Anyway, I'm just rambling here with that. But yeah, it was nice to be in DC. I've only been there one time when I was in 6th grade for a school field trip. So I spent like 5 hours total of my life. So it was nice to drive around and constantly see the Washington Monument or the White House. I was constantly seeing that because I was right there in downtown DC. But like I was saying, I had almost no time to do anything. And so I did manage to go to Politics and Prose, their like famous bookstore, but I didn't do any research beforehand, and I didn't know that they only sell new books. I am very much a used book buyer because they're so expensive. And to be honest, like there's all the new books, like 99.9% of them I feel like, that are published right now and it's available at these bookstores, new bookstores, I can get on ebooks through my library. So I don't need to spend $30, $40, $50, what have you, on books. And so I didn't buy anything. I got to peruse the store, and it's a very nice store, and the employees were very nice. So I can recommend the store. I didn't end up purchasing anything. So that was my week last week. I'm very much happy to be home now and back to my normal swing of things. I have managed to read 15 books so far, and I do want to say, this little sit down here is just going to be focused on the first 15 days reading wise, even though I know it's like the 19th I think now or something, but I'm cutting off to the 15th. That was easy for me to remember when I go to do my second half of the month. So this is so I read 15 books in 15 days. But yeah, I didn't read hardly anything during that first part of that week. But so I didn't purchase anything at the Politics and Prose, but I did manage to find a couple of books at Little Free Libraries, and I just wanted to mention those. I know I mentioned like February is like my ban. For me personally, I'm doing like a book buying ban every other month. So all the even numbered months of this year, I am not buying anything. I did break that a little bit with going to Little Free Libraries, but I was like, I needed the I don't know, book the stress relief in a way. And I feel like because I didn't buy anything at the bookstore, I think it's warrants a little bit, like to do, I don't know. That's my rambly excuse for breaking my own rule, but rules are made to be broken, maybe. I don't know. I am trying to encourage all. This is the only books I'm planning to get this month. So I have The Dark Sunrise by Terrence McCauley, and I picked this up because it's a Western. I've never heard of this author, and the description looked interesting. It's like the burden of the badge. It's a U.S. Marshal who will see a crime, and the cronies are standing on trial, and then there's murder and mayhem continuing on from there. So like, I wanted to get this for June on the Range. Whenever I see a Western, like in little read libraries, I'll tend to pick them up. Same with the Apple paperbacks. Whenever I see these with the Apple and it's like the old logo. And these are older books, like children's books that I grew up reading, so that's why I tend to pick them up. This is from '93, and it's called Camp Murphy by Colette O'Shaughnessy McKenna. And just like, a fun summer camp book about kids. Like, that sounds really cute. And then this other book I couldn't pass up. It was adorable. It's a cookbook, Autumn from the Heart of the Home by Susan Branch. And the cover's what caught my eye because it has like, with like the quilt kind of border here. And then here's the author on the back, and she's like out on the plains. But then when I opened it up, there's these end papers that are just delightful. And then all of the writing has this like really it's like in the author's own handwriting kind of thing, where there's lots of pictures and there's recipes and tips on hosting autumn, like fall, like Thanksgiving and different events there. Like there's embroidery and it's not just all recipes, but most of it is. But there's also like, tips on throwing a party and entertaining here, and with the different decorations that can be used. So yeah, this just looks so cute. I could not resist, and I'm sure that this author has done a collection for all the different seasons of the year, and I want to maybe keep my eye out for those. I don't know if I'll ever find it because I've never heard of this before, but yeah, I'm for sure going to be looking through this come this fall. And this reminds me, I feel like I mentioned when I was talking about my goals, something on the periphery of what I would like to do is, because I love cooking, and I've done a couple of vlogs where I've included cooking in there, in those videos, is I would like to do like a dedicated video, like maybe once a month, on different cookbooks. And I own several. Let's see if you can see that, like this style, this stack right here is cookbooks I have picked up in the last couple of months. And so I would like to pick like a breakfast, lunch, dinner, dessert, something like, 4, and then kind of like make a review of that book in a sense of a cookbook. So I'll have to add this to the pile. Yeah, I really want to do that. But yeah, let me know if you'd be interested in watching it. Okay, so now going on to books that I have read. So I'll start with the physical books. I mentioned the Little House on the Prairie, the Little House Readathon. I always want to say Little House on the Prairie Readathon. Little House Readathon that celebrates Laura Ingalls Wilder, and it was from February 7th through the 10th. And that is Laura Ingalls Wilder's birthday through the day she died on the 10th. So I didn't read too much because, again, that was during the week of my trip. But I did read Little House in the Big Woods and Little House on the Prairie and Old Town in the Green Groves. I read these two on the plane. So I feel like maybe the next time I read these, I'm going to think about, being on the airplane at that time. And then this one I read Saturday when I got back. And I was just completely, I felt like zonked out with because at that point I had gotten used to the time change on the East Coast, the 3-hour difference. So I tried to sleep in, but I couldn't. So I was awake on East Coast time, 7:30 until 3 a.m. That's when I got home and everything. So anyway, so come Saturday, I was just so tired. But it was nice to, read just a light book. This is about Laura Ingalls Wilder's time in Iowa, Burr Oak, Iowa. And it was very much like an old Western, saloon town. And her family was owned part of a hotel, and they were running that. And so, her mother and the children were helping, be waitresses and cook and all of that. And so it's very much a different vibe from these books where they're more the pioneer or the farming and things like that. And so I can see why Laura Ingalls Wilder decided not to include this part of her story in the series itself. And there's also, for such a short book, I think it's 150, 160 pages, there is there's death and sickness, and there's joy as well. But for 150 pages, it does pack a lot in there. Okay, so I've got those. And then I have 2 other physical books that I have read this so far in the 15 yeah, February 1st to February 13th. Campfire by Sean Sarles. And I saw this at a dollar store, and I was like, why not give this a go? This is the James Patterson Presents. And the cover is what drew my eyes, because the eyes, I don't know if you can pick up, the eyes are like, there's a color to them, so they like kind of like glow in the dark. But this was very disappointing. It wasn't scary at all. The writing was bad. And I don't say that, I mean, I'm very easy, I feel like, with writing, so I can get along with a lot. So the plot is good, with the characters or what have you, but no, this was just a failure all around. It's about it's focusing on some teenagers who are with their family and they're going out camping, but and so they're telling what bogs this down completely is these campfire stories. There is huge chunks where you're breaking away from the characters and the narrative and all that to these like short stories basically are in here as well. And I don't like that. Like same as any book that's well written, for example, that includes like huge chunks or even a couple pages of like this random book that the character is writing, for example, something like that. I don't like it. I don't like it. It diverts my attention. And if you want to do that, like that's a whole other story. Or for this, for example, have the teenager camping horror story, but then also have write a separate collection of short stories, campfire stories, for example. Like, I don't think they should go together, and it just bogged it down even more, and it was not worth my time or worth the $1 I spent. Like, luckily I only spent $1. So there was that. And then I read The 1619 Project, Born on the Water by Nicole Hannah-Jones, Renee Watson, and it's illustrated by Nicholas Smith. And this is a children's children's picture book that I found at a little free library. And this is about how the slaves were taken from Africa going over to America, and their journey, their horrific journey that they went through. I was surprised how, not gory, that's not the right word, but I mean, it's a very sad, depressing story, and for it to be a children's picture book, it was a lot to I feel like to process. But this is like they're talking about their joy of living in their homeland in Africa, and then it goes from that to now they're in bondage and slavery, and yeah, it was just a very heavy hitting topic. But then it's all about them trying to hold on to parts of their homeland, their culture, language, their stories, and how and it was like kind of like some of it was told through poetry in a sense, like a narrative poetry, and about like girls. Now, like, it focuses on one girl, and I can't remember her name, but how can she tell her story of her family history, for example, like a family tree in her like kindergarten class or something like that. And so it was very interesting. And then I really liked this one, where it has lots of famous people, as part of her like lineage in a sense. And so yeah, and here she is now in her classroom, and she's like gonna write a story of her. Of her family's history. So yeah, this was very interesting for a children's picture book. I mean, like it has a lot in here, and I really liked the illustrations. And here's like the back with like the ship that they're on. Okay, so those are the physical books I've read so far, and now I'm going to ebooks. I have been reading so many ebooks recently. I've just been on a kick with that because it's dark and gray, and it's hard to like put the lights on. I feel like I'm like resisting that. I don't know. So I've been reading lots of ebooks. So the first one is The Comfort of Crows, A Backyard Year by Margaret Wrinkle. And she wrote Late Migrations, these are very much a set, I feel like. And there's only one or two other books by this author that I want to read, and I really like her books. These are books I would want to reread for sure. The author, she lives in Middle Tennessee, and it's a very simple premise of talking about the nature and the birds that are popping up in her backyard. It's a very simple book, but told beautifully, and like the language, all of it was just wonderful. And yeah, for sure something I want to reread. I love the cover. Okay, and then going to some books that aren't my typical, but I enjoyed reading them. I wanted some like light books for my trip. So I read Reba McEntire's newest memoir, biography, whatever you want to call this. Not That Fancy. It says Simple Lessons on Living, Loving, Eating, and Dusting Off Your Boots. And so she wrote this, I feel like mostly when she was at home in Oklahoma on her property, not touring, or these big extravagant events, because this is taking place a lot of the time during COVID, where all of her life was basically put on hold, and so there's lots of lovely pictures of the pastures and the Oklahoma area that she is in, and sprinkled in here is lots of recipes. Not only ones that she herself has created, but recipes that her friends or family have recommended to her as well, for this book, because I think during this time, because I know that she recently opened up a restaurant in Oklahoma, Atoka, Oklahoma, called Reba's Place, and so there's lots of recipes in here as well, and lots of pictures, and it was like a quick mini biography of her. So this was lots of fun. And then she, in this book, she mentions Dolly Parton, and how she mentioned how Dolly Parton is one of the hardest, or she said is the hardest working woman that she knows that doesn't need to work. And she mentions how Dolly Parton gets up at like 3 a.m. to work every single day, because Dolly Parton has mentioned that she doesn't sleep that much. She doesn't need to sleep that much. And so she gets up at 3 a.m. and gets right to work. And so I read her newest book, Dolly Parton Behind the Scenes, My Life in Rhinestones. And so I'm trying to show you the cover here. But this is, again, kind of like Not That Fancy by Reba McEntire, where it's a light memoir biography. But the point of this book is all of the different fashion that she has worn throughout the years. And, she has a very unique sense of style, and she goes into detail on, why that is, and how she always admired, the flashy makeup and hair and things like that. So you get to see all of the hair, the wigs, the makeup that she's using, the clothes, and it goes throughout the years. And so that was very interesting to read about. And then the third, and I think the last celebrity book that I read this month is AKA Lucy by Sarah Royal, and it's the dynamic and determined life of Lucille Ball. I've read other biographies, and including Lucille Ball's autobiography, and so I'm very familiar with the subject, because I Love Lucy, the TV show, is one of my all-time favorite shows. It's like one of the only really comedic or funny TV shows that I like. I have a very hard time with humor and getting on with it, or comedians, but I really like I Love Lucy. I think it's a classic for a reason. So yeah, I was familiar with the topic and all in the subject, but none of the information in here was new, and it was told very jumpy. It didn't have a linear timeline, and it does mention that, I think, in the very beginning, how she is jumping around, but it didn't offer anything new. The writing was just okay, and there's nothing that stood out for me. I feel like if you read any other biography of her, then you this can be skippable, basically. But if you haven't read anything by her, then you could give this one a go, because it might be the easiest one to find of all the other biographies of Lucille Ball. And then I switched to a mystery book. This is Mary Kay Andrews' series, and what is the name? Does it say it? But it's written as Kathy Hogan Trocheck. This is before Mary Kay Andrews had gone off from her mystery books. I think she wrote 8 or 10 of this series, and it's following a woman who is a house cleaner in Atlanta, and she runs the House Mouse. She has a crew of people under her, and there's a huge mixture. It's not your normal cleaning ladies. There's a couple older sisters who are just trying to get some money to help, in addition to the Social Security, all the way down to a 20-year-old. So you have this huge range of people that's working under the main character here, but also the main character used to work as a cop and then was a private investigator. So cleaning different houses, she can getting to know these people, all while still being connected to the police world. It kind of I feel like gives itself to her getting pulled into random mysteries and solving crimes. So when I saw the cover of this one, this was the very next book in the series, I saved it for Valentine's Day, February, because it looks like a very Valentine's Day cover. But the heart trouble part is because her mom is suffering from an illness related to her heart. So there was nothing in here at all that was February themed. But it was still, a fun book, and I always enjoy Mary Kay Andrews' writing. Nowadays, this was written, I think, back in the early 90s or into the late 90s. But nowadays, she is known, I feel like, or infamous for her beach reads and on the East Coast, like North, South Carolina and Georgia, things like that. And so, yeah, she for sure has her roots, I feel like, in Georgia. The next book is Beverly Cleary, Ramona Kumby, age 8. And I read this with a group of friends. We're going through the Beverly Cleary series. I think this is book 5. But this is all about Ramona's new start at a new school, and she is encountering a possible bully who is, like, throwing spitballs at her and calling her names. But Ramona is very much up for the challenge, because instead of him calling her names, I'm going to create my own name and give myself a nickname. And the egg here is, I don't know if you can tell, but she is following a school trend where everyone brings hard boiled eggs. And there's a funny part where she said there's people who are whackers and whoppers, and there's people who will crack them on, like, the table, or they'll crack them on their head. And she's one that cracks on her head, but her mom didn't give her a boiled egg, and so she gets it all over herself. But then other than that, she is kind of battling, feeling like left out of it in a sense, or left alone, because after school she doesn't go with her friends or go back home. She has to stay with a babysitter who she doesn't really get along with, because she's constantly having to play with, like, a 4-year-old, I believe, and who's just very annoying, and she wants to go do her own thing. So yeah, these are just really cute, children's stories, and I always like Beverly Cleary's writing. And this also was a Newbery Honor book. Let's see. And then the next one is a book by B.J. Daniels, Second Chance Cowboy. This is part of the White Horse Montana series. And this is the second to the last book in the series. And I have read a couple B.J. Daniels books, and I really liked them. So I just went back through her archive of work, and I picked a series I could just, like, read my way through. This is the White Horse Montana series. And the series has, I think it's book 6 or 7 in the series. And there's always been a family that are down and out in a way, but also they're up to lots of, like, criminal mischief. Like, there's one daughter who has been, like, in and out of prison and is now in, like, a mental institution. But she's, like, wanting to go kill people. It's really there's lots of stuff going on, because the intrigue line is, even though there's some romance, a lot of it is like that thriller kind of book. And so in this one, you're actually, instead of following the other characters where this family is constantly pestering and getting in the way of the main characters, in this story you're actually following the mother of that family. And so it was really interesting to get that perspective. And this is like a second chance romance, second chance cowboy. The woman is, like, doesn't say her age, but I feel like she's at least 50, because she has grown children well into their 20s. So I want to say she's at least 50. And so that was interesting to have that different kind of romance story. But she is a cowboy that comes into town, because this is set in, like, way out in the middle of nowhere, Montana. But a cowboy comes to town to kind of escape his past life, and decides to get into the dating pool. And the mother of this family runs a dating website. So instead, for the cowboy, instead of putting his name on her website, he wants to start dating her. And so she's like, how is this possible? Like, I have this horrible history, and I have no time, or I haven't put any attention into my looks and what have you. So it was a really interesting story in this series. And so, yeah, but it was told really, really well, and I'm looking forward to finishing the series. And then, let's see, the other book, talking about series, is Sweet Valley High, number 13, Kidnapped by Francine Pascal. And these are just fun, quick stories, because, again, before and after the trip, I just needed light, fast, easy reads. And these are all reads for me. I read these way back in, like, middle school and high school. But this is following 2 twins in Sweet Valley High, and there's Jessica, who is all about being popular and being liked and boy crazy. And then you have Elizabeth, who is, like, the writer and, like, the do-good with all the morals, whereas Jessica seems to have, like, no morals kind of thing. But Jessica gets kidnapped while volunteering at a hospital, and the story takes off from there. These stories are never really believable. They're just fun, easy reads. Kind of get down memory lane in a way, rereading these books after so long. And let's see, there's a couple other books I've read, but the pictures on the iPad, I can never figure out how I can rearrange them once I've saved them. So let me see here. The last book I read was Catch Me If You Candy by Ellie Alexander. This is a bake shop mystery, and I love the cover here. And this is part of me reading like Booktuber's favorites, and I want to say it was the protagonist who recommended this book. It's probably not recommended, but this is one of her favorite books of last year. And this takes place in Ashland, Oregon, which is a place I have been to several times now. And it's a very cute town. I needed to get some pictures or video on the next time I'm there. But this is the perfect place to set a Halloween party. And I really liked the descriptions of the town and the vibe of it. But there's so many, I feel like, digressions or unnecessary time spent on describing food, and the mystery part never captured me. Like, there's a person who's dressed up in a costume who gets killed, and they're trying to investigate and figure out who done it, what have you. But I was never invested in the mystery. Like, the story, it was just okay. I really liked the Halloween themes and all of that, but I don't know. The story never captured me at all. It was never. I didn't care who did the killing or yeah. It's just, I don't know why. It didn't hit with me or drive with me. I feel like I've tried reading the first book in this series, and maybe I shouldn't have picked this book of the list from protagonists' books, because I feel like I didn't like the other book in this series. But I do like Ellie Alexander's other book. But I can't remember the name of that series, but it's the one that's set in Portland, and maybe it's because it's in Portland where I know that city better than Ashland, where it's really fun to watch the characters go around the different spots, or for me, I've jotted down notes on to try these different places that I mentioned, because they're real places. So maybe that's more the fun part for me more than the story. I don't know, but for whatever the reason, this was a miss for me, even though it seemed very cute, and it was cute. It was just the mystery part didn't grab me at all. Okay, and then so I just want to briefly mention, since this is a catch-up, the books that I am currently reading, I'm only reading, 3 actually, because I am listening to an audiobook, Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmer. I'm slowly reading this, and this was recommended by Kelly over at Books I'm Not Reading. Slowly reading this because I don't have a commute or anything to and from work to read this while I'm in the car, so I'm just trying to read it here and there, but really I should just be physically reading this if it's taking me forever to get to the audiobook. But I am enjoying it. And then the book I'm reading right now, because it's a 3-day weekend, is Marmy by Sarah Miller. I've been doing lots of reading this weekend, but I'll catch you up on all of that the next time I do a book book wrap up. But this is the author of Caroline. She did a book on Caroline of Laura Ingalls Wilder's mother, historical fiction of that. Well, Marmy is a historical fiction, adaptation of Little Women's mother, which is just really delightful. And it actually follows exactly with the timeline of the book. And there's like a part 1 and part 2, like you have in Little Women. And I'm still in part 1, but I am really enjoying it, and to get into this perspective of the mother while you're seeing the children and what they're doing. And, the mother has a different perspective on her day-to-day life, and the children's life. She has an insight into their personalities and faults and all of that. So yeah, it's been fun to read that. And then the other book I'm reading, I just have the dust jacket here because I don't want to mess up the dust jacket because it's really pretty, is Pioneer Girl: The Path into Fiction by Nancy Tysted-Kupel. And here's the really pretty artwork here, and this is all about taking different adaptations of Pioneer Girl and how it turns into Little House in the Big Woods, which is right here. And so there's several adaptations. There's Pioneer Girl, which is Laura Ingalls Wilder's autobiography, and then they tried getting that published, and they tried 3 other editions of that, and then they tried a middle grade book, and then they tried a picture book. And this is all these two. The stories in here are the picture book and the middle grade YA book that Rose Wilder Lane, Laura's daughter, wrote herself, taking all of the different pieces of Pioneer Girl and put it together. And so these are those 2 with lots of notes and pictures and what have you. So yeah, I'll go into this in more detail once I have finished it. So that's all I've been up to so far. This is the month of February. The month is, I feel like, fast flying by. Now the sun comes out. It's been dark, so I had the lights on, but Now the sun is shining right in my eyes, so I should go before I'm getting completely blinded by the sun. But yeah, I'm hoping to read more during this last part of the month, and no more travels. Like, this is a 3-day weekend and I haven't gone anywhere, which is exactly what I needed. I needed to catch up on rest and reading and just feel like more of myself. So I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Book 2.